What's up, fellow homebrewers? This is Sean with Intune Brewing, coming at you with my first equipment review. So I was on Facebook the other day, likely perusing some homebrew group, when an ad popped up that was talking about canning homebrew without a seamer. For those of you that have looked into this, canned seamers are pretty expensive. They're coming down in price, but they're still the cheapest I've seen is around $500. So it was kind of interesting to see how you could can without a seamer. So I reached out to these guys, and they're called Twistee cans, and I was like, hey, would you be interested in sending me some cans and in exchange for a video review? And I told them, look, I'll do it right. I'll do purge with CO2, counter pressure fill, and see how they stack up against, at the very least, bottling. I mean, I don't have access to a can seamer, so I can't compare against that, but at least compare against bottling to see if they're better, worse, or the same. So, sure enough, they agreed to it and shipped me out 48 cans, which just arrived today. So let's check it out. So here's the box, 48 cans. Company, like I said, is Twistee Can out of Longmont, Colorado. Seemed like a good bunch of guys, just based on my conversations through direct message. Real easygoing, just pretty much what you'd expect from Colorado. So if we open the package here, we've got the cans, looks like laid out in 2 layers of 24, all stored upside down, likely for sanitary purposes. Looks like we got all the lids stored in the Ziploc bag here. So they had all kinds of different sizes on their website, ranging from, I want to say the smallest was 8 ounces and the largest was 19.2. In my world, bigger is better. If I'm going to take the time to fill a can, I usually want it to be time well spent. So I went with the biggest one they have, which is 19 ounces. So let's take a look at the can. So good looking can. As you can see, they've kind of got like a little lip on there, and then these little ridges here, which is, I'm guessing, what seals the top. If I can find where this camera is, there we go. Good looking can, fairly solid. It's a little, it reminds me of the cans that you get from the mobile canning services. I can just tell already a little bit right now, even from just denting, squeezing a little bit, you can see it is leaving denting marks. I'm sure if these were full, they wouldn't dent quite so easily. So I guess one thing is be careful handling them when they're empty. So let's see how the caps go on. Take one of these guys out. Should be noted that I didn't see anywhere on there to choose your color. It looked like the colors were all this silver with these kind of goldish caps. So the caps literally just screw on like that. Feels like it's about as tight as they can go. As far as I know, there's no one-time screw-on thing. I think you can take these on and off as needed. Yep. Now one thing I'm noticing is when you unscrew it, it doesn't unscrew like you'd expect, where you keep turning. You just kind of quarter turn, pull up. And probably the same when you're turning on, yeah. I'm guessing that's what creates the seal. So I did reach out to these guys to ask, how they think these should compare against a can seamer, and they actually said that they are equal. I don't see how that's really possible in my, from how I understand a can seamer works. But I certainly have not done the R&D like they have, so who knows. But somehow they're claiming that these ridges here, plus this cap, which I don't really feel a gasket on there, although there does look like a gaskety type material in there, are enough to seal it as good as a can seamer. So one other interesting thing to note is I have seen Monster cans have switched to these as well. So you may actually see these lying around in the form of Monster energy drinks. So if they're good enough for them, maybe what they're saying is true. So one of the things that I noticed right off the bat that's kind of missing from this package is some kind of instructions. Maybe I'm being naive. I've never canned before, but I think that's kind of the point. Know your target audience. If somebody has a can seamer and knows how to can, they're not buying these cans. So the people who are buying them likely have never canned before, don't know anything about the process. So giving them a little sheet here that gives them a heads up on a few basic things would probably be helpful. For starters, one of my questions right off the bat is, what do I have to do to these cans? Do I need to clean them before I use them? Do I need to sanitize them? Or do I just use them? I don't really know. I know that these have linings on the inside, so my guess is I don't have to actually PBW them, but I'd expect I probably need to sanitize them. But again, a nice little instruction manual on top would answer that question right off the bat for me. And also things like best practices, making sure you're minimizing headspace in the can to avoid oxidation over time. I realize that that's kind of general advice that should be taken with everything, but especially so in canning. So that's one thing I wish they had here that I don't see now. Again, maybe it's slipped in here, but if it is in here, I'd make sure it's taped to the top, because it doesn't do you much good to get to the bottom and find that instruction manual that you're missing. So with that said, let's fill one of these things. And I was curious to see what size attachment I'd need. It's a 6.5. So this is what I'm going to end up using on my bottling counter pressure filler. And as you can see, the 6.5 goes nicely right in there. So let's go ahead and go down to the kegerator and fill one of these suckers.